Now, this week has been a time of turmoil for our nation. Of course, we've all seen the pictures. Some of us have watched the video of what happened to George Floyd. A couple weeks ago, I watched the video of Ahmaud Arbery being murdered and gunned down while he was on a jog. I've read the reports of Breonna Taylor and her boyfriend as they were assaulted in the middle of the night for no good reason. And on and on and on. Stories of injustice that have been part of our history and part of our current reality. This morning, instead of a normal Sunday Bible study or sermon, I recorded a conversation with my friend, Pastor Herman Greene. Pastor Herman is the pastor at AbundantLife PDX up in Northeast. It's our sister church, part of the Pacific Conference with us. Pastor Herman is a great brother in Christ, co-laborer for the gospel of Jesus. And we recorded a conversation about what's going on in our city, what's going on in our country, and how we got here and what we can do going forward. I don't agree with 100% of everything Herman says. Herman doesn't agree with 100% of everything I say. But it's important to have relationship and dialogue and to hear multiple voices so that we don't just sit in a self-contained echo chamber. Before we begin our conversation, though, I would ask you to bow your head and your heart with me in a word of prayer. Oh Lord, this is a week of turmoil, a week of strife, a week of fear, a week of rage. Father, we ask that you would restore peace, law, and order in our city. We know that the many thousands who have protested peacefully have had their message hijacked by those who just want to destroy. We also know, Lord, that the many who have protested have done so because they have lived in fear, lived under injustice. Father, help us to have humble hearts, open ears. Help us to have a willingness to engage with truths that might be uncomfortable, but that we need to address and tackle head on. Lord, we pray that you would bring comfort to the families of those like George Floyd, those like Ahmaud Arbery, those like Breonna Taylor who have lost loved ones. Lord, we pray that you would bring peace and safety to our community. We pray these things in the name of Jesus. Amen. I hope you enjoy this conversation. I hope it's a blessing to you.
Yeah, when you're a white kid growing up in Seattle, right? Like they show you The Long Walk Home. Remember that movie? That movie is shown, I think, at least twice. Like you see it in like third grade, and then maybe like there's a substitute teacher in fifth grade.
Are you?
Oh yeah,
Wow.
yeah. Like I saw that movie, and like that was like the kid-friendly movie they would show you to explain racism. And then like in high school, I saw Life, which we were just talking about, and I saw Mississippi Burning, and so then all of a sudden, things were a little more intense.
Yes, I like Life because it spoke to, for me, when you start watching, you think, okay, this is gonna be good, and then you see the racism pop up, and you're like, there we go, there we go, and then at some point you start thinking, okay, they go get out of this and they go make some money, and then you see them getting older and nothing is changing. It's like they still in this. Wait a minute. So our whole life we're gonna deal with this injustice, and there's nothing that's ever going to happen. And then you see the pop up of where the guy realizes that it wasn't their fault.
Yeah.
And he's getting ready to let him out, and they're like, everybody's all happy about it, and he dies.
Yeah. Doesn't he die on the toilet? He has like a heart attack on the toilet.
What the heck? what the heck? So then it's just like, so now once I finally get someone who recognizes that this is truth, then they're gone.
Yeah.
Well, that sucks, egg. And then there's nobody else. And now you got to go the rest of this time trying to figure out how you're going to give out, how you're going to get out or whatever. And it's just, yeah, the ending, when you think about it, is really tragic. Because who goes to a baseball game? That is not what I want to do. I want some money. I want a big house. I want all kind of stuff. I can't even begin to tell you all the stuff that I would want after that long of a lifetime. None of it's going to matter because I'm really, like dust.
The funny thing is, that's all that I want. Like at the end of quarantine here, we're locked down. All I want is baseball to start.
I'm sorry to hear that, because to me, baseball is the slowest game ever. It's just like, it's 20 minutes of action packed into about an hour and a half or however long it takes. But there's really, if you put all the action parts together, I think you only got about 15 or 20 minutes.
Yeah, that's why we don't play it in the winter. We play it in the summer, and you can just kind of chill out and come back in and out. So, hey, so Herman,
Yeah.
for folks, my church, Faith on Hill, can you just tell us like a little bit about yourself, about your family, about your church?
Yeah. I've been married for about 25 years now. I've got 4 kids. My oldest daughter is now a teacher at Roosevelt High School, and I have a grandchild. She gave me a grandchild, so that's absolutely awesome. I love that. And my second daughter is getting ready to go back to U of O to study law. My son records music, and he has aspirations and wanting to be a music artist. He's done a few videos and got a few shows that were supposed to be happening, but with this COVID-19, I don't think any of that stuff is going to happen anytime soon. So he can cancel those shows. Well, he canceled 2 already that I know of. But in any case, and then my youngest daughter, who's 18, will be leaving for U of O this fall. So of the 4 kids that I have, 2 of them are going to be out of the house because one has her own. The youngest will be leaving when fall starts. And then the other 2 who have come back home, I'm trying to usher them out because I'm really looking forward to being an empty nester and having the house to ourselves and running around naked on Wednesdays. And so I'm looking forward to that part, but I can't do that while they're here. So I have to get them out. But that's pretty much me in a nutshell. As far as like, I guess that's my family life. Our church life, we pastor Abundant Life Church in North Portland. It used to be for the old, if you're older and you've been in the denomination a while, it was Mox Crest. And then it went from being Mox Crest to Life Fellowship. And now it's Abundant Life. And that's where it's going to be, because I've got a good 60 years left in me. So it's going to be that way for a good while. We serve the North Portland community. We do mostly a lot of missional activities, a lot of outreach work with the apartment complexes that they're about, I would say about a quarter, not even about a quarter of a mile away from where the church is at. So they're very close in proximity. Oftentimes we actually walk to the park from the church. And then there's a housing complex that's right across the street from the church that we've recently started ministering to. The individuals there are a little older. And so we are doing like support things, life support, and just helping them, just get through. But really just trying to be a good neighbor and really become like part of the fabric of the community, so that we're not just this church living over here in isolation, but the people around the church don't really know what we do, because we do all of our work somewhere else away from the community. And then we come back here on Sundays, hide out in the room, have a service, and then sneak out. And so we're trying to avoid that like a plague. But we've been doing ministry since about, in this same community, I'd say since about 98. We started doing ministry in this community in 98. And we've been here since then. So
Mhm.
that's essentially what I do. I love people.
And you and I have we've been friends for a couple years now.
Mhm.
We're we go to conference stuff and
Yep.
all that. What I respect your opinion a lot. So I want to know, like, just like 3 minute, like, how did we get to where we're at? Because we've seen, like, in the last, I mean, it's not even done. Like, as we speak, there's people still trying to burn down Portland, and then
Yep.
there's people that are trying to, like, peacefully do things correctly, and stand for justice.
Hmm.
So and then there's people just going like, well, that's one bad apple, one bad seed, uh,
Right.
in another part of the country.
Yep.
So how did we get to where we're at? Just, nutshell.
Nutshell. I would say that this is more of a boiling point. This can't be encapsulated in one single event, right? You can't just simply say, well, it was this event that caused this to happen, or it was this event that caused this to happen. This is a combination of a lot of different things happening, especially here in Oregon, because in Oregon, we have to understand that Oregon was established as a whites only state. It was going to be the only state in the union that was whites only. And so when you go back to the history of the state, Black people weren't even supposed to be here. And then when they were here, they were supposed to be able to work, do the thing, and then leave. And so that was the foundation that the state was built on. And then now with the different things that have been happening, we got to go all the way back to like the civil rights era and what was happening here in Oregon, and how Black people were still feeling marginalized, and how they were told to live in one side of town, and then forced and moved from there and told to live somewhere else, and then took from over by Emmanuel and moved somewhere else because they were supposed to be building a hospital that just recently got built. So that's, then you've got that going on. Then you've got the gentrification that's slowly been happening since the I'd say the early 90s.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been happening. Then you've got Sakru, the Ethiopian, who in '88 was right downtown, was pulled from his car by 3 skinheads and beat to death with a baseball bat. And so that happened in 1988. Then you've got Kendra James, who was shot by you've got all of these different things that have been happening to the Black community, and it's reached like this boiling point, Wes, to where no one can say, in the Black community is saying that it's that one thing. It's that when they did that, that's what did it. But for us, it's been more like this has been a progression of racism that has built up to this point. You think about all the families that have been disrupted by racism. And if we're talking in this particular instance, we want to talk about police or whatever. But you think about all the different instances in Portland where police have disrupted families. When we look at our stops data and we look at the amount of Black people that get stopped and for the reason that they get stopped for versus the number of white people that are getting stopped. When we look at our use of force data that says this is the use of force as it pertains to Black people versus as it pertains to white people for the same exact crimes. And you see that is disproportionately for being used against Black people. When we start looking at the number of arrests that are being made for similar crimes, and how it's disproportionate to Black America as it is for white America. And so this is not one singular incident for us. And then when you look at saying, well, that's not, this stuff isn't happening, like it is in other places, but it's happening around the world, which gives us as Black Americans the idea that there's nowhere in America you can go where you'll be safe from this type of injustice. So whether it's Oregon, or whether it's California, or whether it's Washington, or whether it's Minnesota, or whether it's New York, or whether it's in Kentucky, or wherever, Florida, no matter where you go, Black people are going to face some of the same injustices around the state. So where is it a free space for us to really be, where we're going to be treated equally?
Mm-hmm.
And that's what this uproar, this uptick is about, because this injustice has been happening for a long time now. This didn't just start. This has been going on for a long time, and I feel like it's reached a boiling point now with the Minnesota situation, and because that was in everybody's face. I mean, you watched that, you saw that, and there's nothing that you can say, to me anyway, to make sense of that.
No, I mean, everybody was in agreement on that. That was kind of the frustrating thing, because we got divided again the last 5, 6, 7 days over the riots, but for like 4 days before that, everybody agreed, like that was not okay. That was like, should not have happened. You just had to see the video. That's
Right.
kind of the disheartening thing,
Let's think about the disruption, right? So we got separated, or with the idea that we got separated behind the rioting. Now, first and foremost, I want to let me just state for everybody on board, Pastor Herman is not saying that I condone looting, I condone violence, I condone the destruction of property. I think we all stand in agreement that burning down our own city is not going to change. It's not going to change anything. Destroying the small businesses, especially the small businesses. It's not that I don't have an issue with big business, but big business, they've got a lot more to draw from than the small businesses. You know what I'm saying? Their livelihoods are depending on, what they make in this store and the business that they can produce in that store. And so to see their stores be ravaged and, all the debt, that I'm not okay with that. And so that I've talked to protest leaders, and I've said it out. That needs to stop. We need to stop, that. But I think we also all agree that a lot of the damage that's being done is not being done by those protesters that are looking to be peaceful. But there are a few people that come in and they intermix with the peaceful protest, and they're only there to cause a problem. And so they're there to incite, to get people going, to get everything happening. So we also know that that's happening. So now, with all of that being said, I understand, and I'll explain it. So the destruction of those stores, the stores being torn up, and and the glass being broken, and the people going in and taking stuff out of the stores, and and taking from those and impacting the individual's livelihood. Now, and when we see that, when we see that happening, all of us get upset, and we're like, why does this continue to happen? They need to stop. It's not going to change. And so they need to stop doing this. And it makes us all feel uneasy because we don't like what we're seeing. Now, I want us to imagine for a moment the feeling that we're feeling right now, that you're going to feel this way for the rest of your life, and there's nothing that you can do to change it. Because that's how Black America feels. Our communities have been destroyed. Our families have been destroyed. When they take our families, and we've been wrongfully imprisoned, we've been arrested. That changes what we're able to get, what we're able to do, where we can live. And that changes our trajectory of what we can do for our future for a lifetime in most cases. And there's nothing that we can do about that by ourselves. And so there's this sense of feeling this hopelessness, that it doesn't matter what we're going to do. None of this is going to change. And we've had to live with this for like the last 40, 50 years, that nothing is changing. As we sit and we talk to the old timers that have gone through the civil rights, and now we're seeing some of the same stuff that they experienced, and nothing has changed. And it's just like, what if you had to live with this feeling that you're feeling right now because some glass got broken and some property got stolen? That this is how you're going to have to feel for the rest of your life. How comfortable are you sitting with that for the rest of your life? I don't think any of us are comfortable with that. And the whole idea of having to rest with that for the rest of your life, makes you feel some kind of way. And so that's how I feel about it. It's like, I don't want them to do it, but I understand. I want them to stop, but I understand why they feel like they shouldn't. And so what we have to get to is we have to get to that place as to where we're looking at one another and we're saying, okay, I agree that this needs to stop, but I also agree that the violence that is impacting the Black community needs to stop. Mm-hmm. And the same way we cannot continue to move forward with these protests destroying property, we cannot move forward with this brutality that's ravaging the Black home. And so they both need to stop. And until we're willing to put every step and every measure in place the same way we are to stop this rioting, to put that same measure and that same effort in place to stop what's happening to Black America, then why should it stop? Mm-hmm. How I feel about it.
So, I think, knowing my church, there's a huge amount of sympathy for what you're saying. And then the thought is, this area is like 86% white, the area we're down in. And in some places it's higher. And so we're going, hey, we're not racist, and we don't, you hear all the catchphrases, right? I don't see color. We love everyone. So we don't want the Black community, treated unfairly. So why are we getting blamed for it? The kind of the dear white people kind of things, just curious what you say to that. Cause there's a lot of that I hear, just talking to folks.
Man, again, the George Floyd video is my response to that, right? So in Black America, I'm taught to how to deal with the racists. From a child, I'm taught, to recognize racist behavior and then to deal with it based on what you see. Not necessarily the individual, but the character of the individual. And so you watch how they talk at you and versus talking to you. You watch how they talk about you and how they treat you. And you that's how the character, you start looking at the characteristics of the individual. And once you find them to be a racist, and that they got racist acts because racists are out there, then you know how to deal with the racist. You avoid them. You don't waste time on conversation with them. You're not going to try to convert them. You're not going to try to get them to see things your way. The racist is going to be a racist until they have an awakening and then they do something different. So to make my life better, avoid the racist at all costs. And, only deal with it if I have to deal with it. But then the scarier part is because now I know how to deal with the racist. What I struggle with is how to deal with the 3 officers who stood by while the racist killed me. So there were 3 officers who stood by and they saw what was happening and they refused to do something. They saw, one of them even went as far as to try to justify his actions by saying, well, maybe if he hadn't have done that, or if he wouldn't have done this, then he wouldn't be in this situation. You got a man laying on the ground with a knee in his neck and handcuffs behind his hands cuffed behind his back. How much more of a threat is he going to be? And you're standing by just watching this happen. You didn't say anything. You didn't say, come on, man. We got him now. He's good. There is enough of us here. We can get him into the car. Come on, man. What's going on? You need to stop this. You stood by and you let this happen. So to me now, instead of having one racist on my neck, I have 1 racist on my neck and 3 racists standing by watching. So what do I say to people who would say that's not us? I would say, if you're not saying something, then you're a part of the problem. If you're not doing something, then you're a part of the problem. You're just as bad, if not worse, than the person who's got his knee on my neck, because you're seeing this happen and you're not doing anything to stop it from happening. Why are you not doing anything? Is it because you're afraid of how they might see you? Are you afraid of what they might say to you? Are you afraid of am I going to lose my job? Are people not going to like me? And, are they going to think that, I'm not on their side, that I don't believe them if I say something now? Or are we just going to sit back because we want to protect the fragility of how we feel and what we think, and we don't want to upset anybody and watch this man die, because that's what happened. And so if you're not saying something, then you're giving power and you're fanning the flames of racism.
Mm-hmm.
So that's my response to, but we live so far away. You can do something. I know that racist stuff is happening. What are you doing about the stuff that you know is happening? What are you saying? Who are you talking to? You have some level of influence. Do something instead of sitting at home saying, well, if we just keep praying, then it's all going to get better. We've been praying for a long time now, and it ain't got better. So do something.
Yeah, I had to come to terms with, when I first saw the George Floyd video, and when I saw the Ahmaud Arbery video, and I read the Breonna Taylor stuff, and I was horrified. And then I thought, well, what good is it going to do for me as a dude that lives in Portland to post anything about what's going on in Minneapolis? And so, but then I had to come to terms with the fact that I hadn't said anything publicly. I think I'd said some stuff privately, but I hadn't said anything publicly about the Lake Oswego Police Department.
Mm-hmm.
And we know, it was that like 4 or 5 months ago that came out, where they had run an investigation against a black guy in Portland, even though they have no jurisdiction, no reason or right to do it. But the chief of police was like fishing.
Michael.
What was that?
Yeah.
Yeah.
His name, Mike Fesser. He's actually a very good friend of mine. Like, he comes to my church every Sunday.
And that's the thing. It's like, I live here, so I can't say, well, it's not Minneapolis. Like my posting something about George Floyd changes nothing in Minneapolis.
Nothing.
But I have voice here, and I didn't say anything about it then.
And that becomes the question: why aren't we outraged? And until we are outraged about everything that is racist,
mm-hmm.
until we are, I'm talking outraged. We're not going to sit by and just let this continue to happen. Then no, nothing's going to change. And I'm tired of hearing about and I've said this a lot this week, and so it's not new to me. But we talk about the I'm tired of hearing about the Black Lives Matter. All lives matter, and I 100% I agree. All lives do matter. But I liken that to a street with a lot of adjoined houses, and then one of them catches fire. When you call the fire department, the fire department doesn't come out and start spraying all the houses and saying all houses matter. And so, we start spraying down this house, even though it has no water, no fire in it, but it matters just as much as the other houses. So I'm going to get this house wet, and I'm going to get the other houses wet. Man, we're going to deal with this because all the houses are important. All houses matter. Well, the reality is, if you put out the house that's on fire, that's why you were there. You were called to put out the house that was on fire. Mm-hmm. And then if you save that house, then you directly impact all the houses that is connected to. Because if we stop this house from burning, then we can stop the houses that is connected to from burning. But we initially need to put out the one that's on fire first, not get the other ones wet so that they don't catch fire. And so that's how I liken that. You're right, absolutely. All lives do matter. But right now, Black America is on fire. And if we don't do something to douse the flames that are subduing us, then we're going to be overcome. And then who's going to be there to fight for you when it's your turn? So right now, all lives matter, but Black lives are on fire. Let's help us get put out, and then we can come back to the Asian lives, and we can come back to the Latino lives, and then we can deal with the Native lives, and we can deal with all the lives. Mm-hmm. So all lives do matter, but right now Black America's on fire. Let's help put us out.
Hey, I think the frustrating thing is that it's such a complex issue, and it's like you've been saying, this has been going and building, and it's not just one thing, and so then we're like, okay, so what then people start suggesting one thing answers, like, oh, here's the one thing, if we just fix this, that would solve everything. And there's no way that's true. But what is one,
not Matrix.
what is one thing that like we could start doing? I'm not saying it's the answer, but like, what's a first step? What could a white church in a majority white neighborhood do? What's something practical other than, because I hate virtue signaling and hashtag activism and all that kind of stuff. So like, what's something real that we could do?
A tangible, I would think, would be the low hanging fruit would be one, just making sure that in our messaging across the board, not just, like you said, on a hashtag, but even in our sermon, as we're putting our sermons together, to make sure that we're intentionally talking with our congregations about racism and what the role that we can play to stand up against racism, challenging our constituents to take a self inventory, to look at themselves and to see what are areas in their life that they may need to investigate, things that they may need to change, ask themselves, who are they communing with? Who are they genuinely having conversation with? Who are they genuinely trying to get different perspectives from? Who are you talking to about these situations? One of the things I love so much about you is that if you have a question about something, or you're wondering about something, you pick up the phone and you call me and we talk about it. And that doesn't mean that we always agree on everything, but we have a conversation about it so that we can understand the different perspectives, and we can understand the different views, and we walk away better because we both talk to one another in a manner as to where we're both figuring out how do we get through this and where do we go from here. And so the role of that relationship is I would say greater, more important than the actual conversation being resolved, because we're establishing a relationship that will help us resolve the big issue when they do arise. And so right now, who do you have a relationship with, or who do the body of your church have a relationship with that they can talk to, that they can share their truth with, that they can ask questions to, without being judged? Because again, this is not, I don't want anybody to think that this is a bash on white America, because it's not. I recognize as a Black individual that when I look back through all the greatest advancements, as far as like the civil rights and movements against racism and injustice, when you look at all the major advancements, they happened not in isolation of just all the Black people did it. It was when Black people and white people came together and recognized that and said, we're no longer going to stand for this, and something has to change. And so when we came together, things changed. And so I feel like, and I believe that in order for things to change even now, white America and Black America and our Latino America and our Asian, we all have to come together to stand against the injustice that's happening. And we have to be in conversation with one another. We have to have relationships with one another. One of the things I've even asked myself is, as I sit up and talk about the things that are plaguing our Latino Americans, how many Latino Americans have I actually had a conversation with to find out if what I'm saying they really need? Mm-hmm. So am I standing up now as a Black person saying, this is what Black people need, and this is also what our Latino Americans need? What? Do you ask me? Oh, now I got to check myself. Or do I get indignant and say, well, I know, because if it's impacting Black America, it's got to be impacting you too. That's the wrong position to take. So I gotta do different. And so I have to make sure that in my conversations, when I'm bringing people to the table, that I'm making sure that I'm inclusive of all the people that I'm trying to come to the table for and about. How do you I would say a first step is making sure that you got the right people at the table. So you talk about it in your sermons, you talk about it to your congregation, you challenge them to have questions or to really process. And then we make sure that when we bring issues to the table, or we want to do something, who are we bringing to the table to really realize or recognize if what we're doing is what needs to be done? And it's just create the conversation, create a space for conversation. Now, if people don't show up, it should be not because you didn't try, but because they chose not to show up.
Mhm.
You should, the olive branch should definitely be extended.
Yeah. Hey, so I think we're gonna wrap up, but just if you have any just final like minute or two, just an encouraging word for our church, just love to hear that.
Yeah, I would say don't stop fighting, and don't stop believing. Again, I don't like to paint with large brushstrokes and say that all white people don't care, because that can't be true. How can I say all white people don't care when I've got Adam here, and I've got Josh, and I've got Alex, and I've got all this host of individuals who I know believe in the cause and want justice for all of us. And I know that I know that the church believes in what's happening, and there's some things that you don't understand. Having a question and not understanding something does not make you a racist. It makes you an individual who has a question and doesn't understand something. And that's why you have people around you that can help you clarify and get the answers that you need. So keep fighting, keep working towards a resolution, knowing that it may not happen today, but it's going to happen, and it's going to be as a result of some of the work that you did today. It's going to be as a result of some of the questions that you asked today, some of the ways that you challenged yourself on today, some of the ways that you challenged like your family and your friends on today. It's going to come because you believed in what you were doing and you refused to give up. Regardless of what's happening around, and regardless of what other people are saying, trust that what you're doing is making a difference, and keep working towards that difference. Don't let people distract you. Don't let people try to get you to stop saying it doesn't matter, or it's not going to change anything, or you live so far out here that it's not going to make a difference. Everything that you're doing is making a difference. It does not matter how far you are. You're making a difference. Keep trusting in what you're doing, and more so, trust that the thing that God has given you to do, He has in place what it's going to take to work that out. So it's not up to you to work it out to the end anyway. It's up to you to keep working, and it's His job to work it out. So just know that God is working this out, and we haven't given up hope in you, and we don't want you to give up hope in us. And so together we're going to get through this. So thank you.
Well, thank you, Pastor Herman. And so I'm gonna hit the end of the recording here, and so. I want to say thanks to Faith on Hill for watching, anybody else that did. And you can engage with us more online through our social media at Faith on Hill and faithonhill.com.
Hey, I just wanted to say thank you again for being with us today. I know this isn't our normal format for Sundays. And if there was something that was talked about or said that you have a question about, that bothered you, that you strongly disagree with, I would love to hear from you. My email is adam@faithonhill.com. Many of you have my cell phone numbers. I'd be happy to give it to you if you don't have it. I would love for this to cause dialogue, to cause conversation. The enemy, the devil, wants the Church of Jesus to be divided. And he will and has used race and racial tension to divide Christ's church. We don't want to be divided, but we want to have dialogue and conversation. There's a lot of different opinions, points of view, but we need to wrestle with these things together so that we can move forward in the love and the power of Jesus Christ. Again, if you have any questions, comments, or disagreements, my door is open. If you just need prayer this week, reach out. We would love to pray for you, serve you in any way that we can. If you know of a need in our community during these rough times, let us know. We'd love to help. God bless you. We'll see you this week in our Zoom gatherings with the 20-minute Bible study, and next Sunday morning at faithonhill.com.